concept về Ethereum và Validator là gì ha? Thì ở đây ở đây anh chị đều đã quen thuộc với lại blockchain hết đúng không ạ? Ờ, dạ. Thì mình cũng đã biết, nếu mà đã quen thuộc với blockchain thì cũng đã biết là về Ethereum. Thì Ethereum thì là một cái blockchain nền tảng dùng dành cho smart contract, tức là mình có thể sử dụng smart contract để xây dựng những cái decentralized application, những cái ứng dụng nằm trên blockchain. Thì với Ethereum thì cái token nó cái token của nó là ETH, dùng để trả cho phí giao dịch nè, rồi và cái hoạt động staking nền tảng. Thì nếu mà mình đã quen với blockchain thì mình biết là có rất nhiều loại DApp nè, và mình có thể hoạt động mình sử dụng ở trên blockchain, những DApp ở trên Ethereum. Thì việc sử dụng nó thì nó tức là việc mình sử dụng thì với cái tầng bề mặt đó thì mình đã quen thuộc, nhưng với những cái tầng nền tảng như là cách Ethereum hoạt động như thế nào, và cách mình có thể kiếm tiền trực tiếp từ hoạt động staking cơ bản trên mà cái này là cái hoạt động cơ bản nhất của những cái blockchain, đó là hoạt động infrastructure, tức là những hoạt động nền tảng lên trên cơ sở tầng của blockchain đó. Thì để ok mình đi qua cái khái niệm chính hơn. Smart contract thì những cái này cơ bản là hợp đồng thông minh để thực thi nè, DApp là những sử dụng smart contract để chạy những cái ứng dụng phi tập trung trên Ethereum nè. Rồi EVM thì nó là cái hạ tầng ở trên Ethereum để chạy những cái smart contract đó. Rồi gas fee này kia thì là phí cái phí tính toán mà mạng blockchain sẽ sử dụng để trả cho cái hoạt động của nó. Rồi ở đây thì sau cái đợt một là một cái release của Ethereum thì có cơ chế đồng thuận rất là sắc, thì mình sẽ có được thêm cái stacking. Ở đây thì những cái validator không có quan trọng. Ok, mình sẽ đi qua luôn với validator là gì ha. Thì những validator là những người sẽ chạy những cái node nền tảng cơ bản ở trên mạng Ethereum. Thì khi mà người ta chạy khi mà mình là validator chạy node như vậy á, thì bất kỳ người dùng nào hoặc là bất kỳ mình phải biết là những cái DApp sử dụng ở trên nền Ethereum đó, thì khi mà nó hoạt động như vậy á, thì sẽ cần những cái node xác thực xem là những cái chuyển tiền đó, hay những cái giao dịch mà chạy trên những DApp đó chạy qua Ethereum đó, thì nó có thật sự chính xác hay không, nó có đúng hay không, và ờ, nó có sai về những thông số gì hay không. Thì những cái người mà xác thực đó thì người ta sẽ chạy một cái hạ tầng node, thì mình có thể gọi là validator. Mà để mình nếu mình đã biết qua Bitcoin á, thì cơ chế của Bitcoin á, nó sẽ là group of work. Thì khi này là mình phải đào và sử dụng thuật toán, mình sẽ gọi miner. Nhưng mà với cơ chế của validator thì mình sẽ phải sử dụng những thuật toán khác để kiểm tra xem là nó đúng chính xác hay không, nó sẽ đỡ tiêu tốn tài nguyên cơ sở hạ tầng hơn. Nhưng mà để trở thành một validator của một cái mạng á, thì mình phải đặt cọc ít nhất là 32 ETH cho một cái validator. Cái này là cái điều được quy định ở trong Ethereum để chạy một cái validator như vậy. Thì đây là cái vector thuần túy của Ethereum, nếu bất kỳ ai cũng có thể chạy. Nhưng mà cái việc đặt cọc 32 ETH này nó rất là kiểu như là rất là khó khăn. Và cái cơ sở hạ tầng để chạy ở đây mình chỉ cần ví dụ như là Vector Lion sẽ chạy những cái Lighthouse hay là đó, thì những cái hạ tầng của hạ tầng kỹ thuật nó cũng rất là khó. Okay. Và à, ok. Vậy mọi người có câu hỏi hay thắc mắc về gì về Ethereum hay là Vector thì có thể nhắn trong nhóm để mình có thể trả lời những cái phần đó, hoặc là hỏi ngay bây giờ cũng được. Ờ, dạ ok. Vậy mình sẽ bắt qua bây giờ sau phần này á, thì Isaac sẽ nói về cái chương trình community setting model của module của Lido. Thì à, trước khi trước khi Isaac nói về cái vấn đề đó thì mình sẽ có một cái mình sẽ cung cấp một cái môi trường tạm nếu mà mọi người muốn tham gia cái thực hành ngay cái việc mà tạo một cái solo successor ở trên Ethereum mà bằng system của Lido, thì mọi người có thể đầu tiên mọi người cứ vào nhóm để có gì có thể hỏi nha. Rồi ở đây mình có một môi trường tạm thời được hỗ trợ từ AWS, thì mọi người có thể sử dụng môi trường này để tạo một cái EC2. Thì mình sẽ hướng dẫn tạo cái EC2 từ đây để tức là một cái server để mình có thể chạy tạm thời ở trong cái buổi workshop này, để mình có thể thực hành ngay cái việc mà tạo một cái solo successor bằng những cái bước hướng dẫn và sách tiếp theo bằng Lido. Thì cái môi trường tạm này là mình có thể hiểu là môi trường tạm thời để cung cấp bởi AWS để mình hoạt động cái buổi này thôi. Còn nếu mà lý tưởng nhất thì Lido vẫn khuyến khích mọi người là có thể chạy nốt một cái nốt ở nhà. Và nếu mà mọi người có thể làm được thì cái đó là cái khuyến khích và lý tưởng nhất từ phía Lido. Ok, thì mọi người để mình sẽ gửi cái link này vào trong nhóm. Ok, rồi xong rồi mình sẽ có trong cái slide cũng có hướng dẫn, tức là các bạn sẽ khi mà vào cái link thì các bạn nhấn nét và nhấn vào cái Open AWS Console này, sau đó thì mình chuyển qua region Singapore và tạo cái EC2 với những cái thông số này. Ok rồi. Mọi người có muốn mình làm qua một bước tạo luôn không ạ? Làm không? Dạ. Ok, vậy em demo sơ qua cái bước tạo environment trước để mọi người vào console để tiếp tục vào terminal để nó chắc có thể tiếp theo. Ok. Sau khi login thành công thì mọi người kéo xuống nhóm Angry với lại dân event. Tiếp theo này cái thanh C3 bên trái nhấn Open AWS Console. Sau đó chọn Singapore. Chọn EC2. Ở đây mình sẽ chạy một cái máy chủ tạm thời để ngoài ngoài chạy trên server này thì Lido cũng có nhiều cách mình có thể chạy step by step mà không có phải hoạt động không phải có thực hiện quá nhiều bước kỹ thuật. Thì cái đó có thể là Isaac sẽ nói thêm về cái đó. Slide. Ở đây mọi người có thể tạo một cái key mới để dùng bằng connect bằng SH. Khi mà tạo khi mà mình nhấn tạo thì nó sẽ gen một cái file và mình lưu lại và mình tải về thì có thể kết nối bằng trực tiếp bằng máy. Ở đây mình tạo sẵn key rồi cho nên kéo xuống ở dưới chỗ storage thì mình sẽ chọn cỡ 500 GB vậy. Rồi mình sẽ tạo cái server ở đây. Sau khi tạo xong một cái instance của server thì mình sẽ qua phần security. Mình chỉnh cái security group này. Inbound thì hiện tại là do môi trường test để mình có thể làm cái anon. Hiện tại thì mình có thể chọn on traffic với lại on anywhere. Inbound rồi với outbound cũng vậy luôn. Outbound có rồi. Ok. Sau khi mà tạo một cái server như vậy thì khi mà đợi cái service nó đã chạy thì mình có thể connect trực tiếp bằng nick vào cái connect ở đây ở trên ở đây thì nó sẽ vào cái màn hình terminal. Mình sẽ qua cái instance này, mình sẽ có một cái bootleg IP. Cái bootleg IP này sẽ là cái IP server của bạn vừa tạo xong. Đây, connect xong mình thử. Rồi, ok. Đó là cái bước tạo server cơ bản. Ở đây mình dùng Ubuntu 24. Đó. Ờ, để mình có thể thực hành trong cái buổi ngày hôm nay. Rồi, ok.
Okay, so really now that we understand what's let me open this. Now that we understand what's a validator, and I can just go very quick in English as well. Like you have the two biggest networks, probably Bitcoin, Ethereum. Bitcoin proof of work, Ethereum proof of stake. In the case of Bitcoin, proof of work, what it means is that you have a lot of computers competing to solve a problem. And that's why people say that Bitcoin uses so much energy, so much of everything, because that competition is a race to consume more resources. It's more technical, but when you mine a block of Bitcoin, Bitcoin expects one result, so you have a lot of computers trying multiple results till they get to the one that the protocol expects. In the case of Ethereum, proof of stake, and just as a note, every proof of stake protocol works a bit differently. In the case of Ethereum, instead, what you do is you put like a security deposit. The same way when you rent a car, the same way when you rent an apartment, you put a security deposit in case something happens. Ethereum can take part of it, or even all of it, of the security deposit. Um, the security deposit is 32 Ether, that was mentioned already. This also helps prevent civil resistance, which is a problem in computers where you get people sort of spamming the network and just trying to overload the network, I guess you could say. And in the case of Ethereum, to finalize a transaction, to like settle a transaction and do as if it's confirmed and it cannot roll back, you need at least 2/3 of all the validators to say, okay, yeah, this looks good. Um, I think we don't need to look at this now. And so on a validator, you have like a few roles that work for two main things. One of them is to process transactions. When you send a transaction, a node gets it, a validator, and a validator that is tasked to propose the block looks at the transactions, builds a block. A block is like a page of transactions. He looks and says, okay, let me take this transaction, let me take this one, till the page is as full as he can have it. And then he goes, okay, this is my block. There you get it. Then you have the attesters. The attesters, what they do is they look at the block that was proposed and they They get it, they check it, and then they say, okay, this block is legit. This block works. This block doesn't contain like an invalid transaction of some sorts or whatever. So they say, okay, I attest. It's like a vote. It's like a vote of confidence. When you get more than two-thirds of attestations of votes towards a proposal, the block gets included. That's how it works. That's the processing of transactions. And then there's securing transactions, which is tied, like it's almost the same, but more technically, a part of the job of these validators is to secure the network. So any kind of there's a few rules in the protocol that are considered an attack to the network. When there's anything that tries to attack the network, the Ethereum is able to kick them out or to slash them. Slashing as in taking part of this security deposit. Um, and that takes in the form usually is attempts to violate finality. Finality is a concept in blockchains where a block cannot be reorganized or excluded. There's depends on the blockchain. There's a certain time period where a block can be excluded, can be reorganized or put in a different order, etc. In Ethereum, it takes roughly 20 minutes to finalize a block. So that means there's 20 minutes where an attacker could do X and prevent a transaction from happening, from being displayed and changing sort of the history of the last 20 minutes in Ethereum. Um, and Ethereum is built so that those attempts are slashed, are penalized. We don't want that to happen. And it's expensive to do that in Ethereum because of the design. You need to burn at least 1/3 of all the stake ether to try to do that. And if we look at this here, there's 36 million ether staked. If you multiply that by almost 5K, that's a lot of money. To attack Ethereum, you need to at least burn 1/3 of that. So the more ether is staked, the more the value of ether grows, the more expensive is to perform an attack on the network. This is important. I don't know if you guys know, you guys probably know about Monero, the coin, the privacy coin. Monero is getting attacked right now by a 51% attack. So like these things happen, right? So and we try to work towards those things not happening. There's again more institutions, more people that trust blockchains to store their money because especially in some countries, is even more secure to have $1 on Ethereum than on a national bank. I don't think that's the issue here in Vietnam, but I don't know. There's multiple countries where that's a problem. And then there's all sort of things that for people that work in crypto, for example, you get paid usually in the blockchain, so you want the blockchain you use to be as secure as possible. Now, as part of that, we explore a bit of sort of the concept of security. As part of that, you have multiple profiles, multiple types of people that secure the network. Usually, we categorize them as professionals and independents, or home stakers. The professionals are businesses. Their business model is to secure networks, and from the rewards, they make the profit, and they just run stuff. They run multiple networks, etc. Home stakers or independent stakers usually do it not exclusively for the passion, but there's a strong belief that these things need to happen this way and that we are contributing to this better future and all of that. Plus, you make some money as well, and that's why I don't know. I don't have a picture, which is a mistake, but I have a machine the size of my palm of my hand, a mini computer, on my home that I use to run Ethereum. I help the network. I am more confident on my assets being in the network, and it pays for the internet of the house and a few more things, which is not bad at all. Um, and this is because, again, having a node is like having a franchise of a bank. You put the node downloads all of Ethereum, and every time there's a new block, your node receives it as well. It checks it, it confirms it votes for it, and sometimes you get to propose as well. And as a franchisee of this bank of Ethereum, you get rewards. Also, you get penalized if you mess it up, because that's how it works. But you get rewards for that, and we'll see more in a second. But that also means that your job is to verify and enforce the rules of Ethereum. So, for example, in 2022, the US, the United States, they prohibited a smart contract on Ethereum, Tornado Cash, for those who know. And the nodes in the United States were required to enforce that because, well, it's the law, you don't want to go to jail. How did Ethereum manage to retain its properties of censorship resistance and providing a service equally to everyone in the world? By people in other countries that run the node that do not need to abide probably by the rules of a specific government. So people that wanted to transact with Tornado Cash, which is a valid application that the sanction has been reverted, all of that, that people were always able to transact, which is what we ultimately want. We want Ethereum to always provide the service equally to everyone in the world. There's not a lot of independent stakers. It's about 6.5% of all the stakers in the network, and so part of my job is upping that number up. So hopefully, any of you guys here like get motivated to join the set as well. Now we're going to get a bit of more into the how the node works itself, the machine or the software, better said. In the anatomy, you have a few components. You have the supporting software, which is Ubuntu, most likely Ubuntu, Debian, or a distribution of Linux. Those are the most popular to run these kinds of services. Then you have the node-specific software. So, for example, here you have an execution client, a consensus client, and a validator client. The clients are just clients are software that download Ethereum and abide by the rules. In the case of execution, the execution client takes part of the execution layer and downloads it, confirms everything. The execution layer is the part of Ethereum that is tasked to with the execution of transactions. With the virtual machine, it's like the Windows of Ethereum, if you will. If you do a transaction, how does Ethereum knows that that transaction works? Because of the execution layer. Then you have the consensus client. The consensus client has the rules of the consensus. Okay, so now we have execution. Now we know that the programs in Ethereum, that the applications in Ethereum work. How do we make sure that we don't get attacked, that the stakers are secure, that the transactions are done in the right way, in the right order? That's with the consensus. The consensus is the one that enforces these two things. And lastly, you have the validator client. The validator client and the signer and all of that, that's for the sake of this presentation, we'll just treat it as one. The validator client holds the keys of your validators. It's like a wallet where you put your validators, and then it performs actions. So when the consensus says, hey, I need you to propose something, it goes to the validator client. The validator client takes the keys, like the wallet, and says, okay, let's propose. Here it is. Or, hey, I need you to attest. I need you to vote on a block proposal. The validator client goes, takes the key, and says, okay, yeah, I think it's good, whatever. There you have it. It signs the transaction like you would sign a transaction to send me money, whatever. Uh, well, this is part of the communication, probably a bit more advanced for today. We can leave that for another session. But of course, the clients need to communicate. There's certain protocols, there's certain rules for the consensus and execution to treat each other. Because even though they are technically different things, they need to work together as one Ethereum. You don't talk, you never say Ethereum consensus or Ethereum execution, you just say Ethereum. So these have to work together. Uh, but again, are unique. Like I said, for example, execution, you have the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, akin to the Windows. Windows is also has a VM, for example, and stuff like that. And then you have the consensus client, which has the state of the network and the security and all of that. Let me stop here first and see if there's any questions or if everything's clear, if I was going too fast. Sorry? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, like we'll have links for everything. Admittedly, Lido is probably um, not the best protocol to start with. It's a bit more advanced. You get like a bit more hands-on. But if you enjoy a challenge, then yes, you'll learn a lot. But it'll take you some time. Uh, okay, cool. Then now we go with the rewards and penalties, more of the economies of how this works. Um, the let's go back from the total up. The total, the rewards, and I just want to make clear that this is not financial advice, and or all of these are estimations. There's formulas for all of this. Right now, the total is about 3%, and this is denominated in Ether. You get 3% on Ether. Um, and you get it through different buckets. The first bucket that you see up there is the consensus issuance and the sync committee. You don't need to know what's the sync committee, it doesn't matter. Let's just say consensus issuance. The issuance, Ether on every block, Ethereum on every block generates new Ether, and it pays the validators with this new Ether. And that's most of it. That's roughly 2.7% of all the issuance. Part of the issuance goes to different things. So if you propose a block, you make a bit more money. If you vote a lot, you make money for voting. If you are in a part of a sync committee, you also get money for being part of the sync committee. Something important also on Ethereum is that it creates new Ether, but it also burns a lot of Ether. So this 2.7% is usually offset by that. What it means is that, well, if Ethereum creates one Ether every 12 seconds, every block, it usually burns about the same every 12 seconds. So it's like, it's new Ether, but it's almost as if not really. And I don't know if that's, I see your face, I don't know if that's too much right now. Like, what does it burn instead of giving it? You mean? Yeah? Is that the question? Yeah. Every time you transact, you pay in Ether. In Ether, instead of giving that to the validators, it burns it. And maybe a good follow-up question is why, instead of, there's networks that they don't give anything to the validator, no new issuance, or not in theory. For example, Bitcoin, in theory, when the mining stops, when the new Bitcoin stops, miners will only get paid by fees. In the case of Ethereum, they don't do that because it creates more stability. So in times where there's little transactions, you still get paid a good amount. But in times where there's a lot of transactions, sometimes Ethereum burns more than it generates. So at the end of the day, like, it's better economically for the network, but it's also better for the people that operate because they get a more stable revenue. Um, then there's, and this is the issuance. This happens in here in the consensus layer, and then there's the transaction tips. So a transaction has two parts. You have the base fee, which is the part that gets burned, and then this is the tip, which is a cute name to say bribe, maybe, or something different. So if you have a transaction that is very important, you can tip the validator a bit more, so it is enticed to include it as soon as possible. And this happens, I don't know, in large means of NFTs or whatever in 2021. A lot of people paid a lot of transaction tips because they wanted to be the first one. They wanted to be before the other person. And then is MEV, which is a bit of a more complex topic. MEV is maximal extractable value. Um, a bit more financial, I think, even. But essentially, there's a network of professionals that try to extract as much value as possible by looking at information on the network. And I don't know why I got myself into this. Now I need to explain it. Um, so let's say, for example, I make a transaction on Uniswap. I want to change 1,000 USDC for Ether, right? I make the transaction. In Ethereum, you have this thing called the mempool, which is a pool of transactions. So I send a transaction, the transaction goes to this mempool, and then the validator looks at the mempool and says, okay, let me take it. What happens with the mempool is that it's public, so everyone can see the transactions. And then this creates an environment where you have people with more knowledge, with probably, it's usually teams of PhDs and mathematicals that like make very complex algorithms. They look at the mempool and they say, if I buy before you, I can change the price, I can make money. I can make money because I see what you're doing. Information is money, so if I know what's going to happen, I can do it first and get some money. Um, but there's one problem. They see what happens, but it's hard for them to include the transaction. It's hard for them to be like, okay, I know what is going to happen. I need to be the first one. I need this to happen exactly. So what they do is that they pay the validators. So again, let's run through the example again. I'm a validator, for example, and Ethereum says, okay, it's your turn to propose a block. I can create the block by myself. I can go to the mempool and say, okay, I like this transaction, whatever, this pays good, whatever, let's propose a block. Or I can turn to those people and be like, what do you got for me? What's your offer? And they say, okay, if you put this block, which has stuff in it that is good for me, if you put this block, I'll pay you this much. And that's largely how it works. About 90% of the blocks use MEV for that. There's it, there's good MEV, there's bad MEV. In practice, MEV helps keep the prices on par with the market. Helps with a lot of the MEV is arbitrage, really. But there's also MEV. There's bad MEV where you really squeeze normal people that just make transactions, and that's MEV that we usually don't want. But whatever, that's MEV. You sum all of this up, you get this 3% more or less. The part of the offset, I want to go back for a second as well because I think it's very important. There's this thing of inflation and all of that happens with any currency or whatever. Ethereum is very interesting because while most blockchains maybe give you even more, you have to look at the net issue, the net inflation. You have to look at the real rewards of it. Because a lot of blockchains, for example, pay you with inflation. You see, I don't know, let's say something crazy, 1,000% but the token in a few months is worth nothing. Ethereum is different because it is so mature at this point that it burns so much that the inflation is almost none, and for some time it has also been negative. So, for example, since 2022, the end of 2022, the inflation has been of about 0.135% a year, which is almost nothing. And a few months ago was negative. So, like, that 3% is hard money, how I like to say it, right? Okay, let's continue. Now is the penalties. Okay, we see how we make money, sounds good. Now, how we can lose it is also important to know. Um, there's two main things that make you lose money on Ethereum when running a validator. Um, Slashing and correlation penalties are pretty much the same. I'll explain in a second. The most common one is missed duties. If Ethereum says you have to attest, you have to vote, and you don't vote, that's a missed duty. If you have to propose a block, that's a missed duty. It may sound a lot, but really it's not important. On Ethereum, if you miss something, you lose is like cents, like micro cents of Ethereum. And as a rule of thumb, what you lose in 1 hour, you make back in 1 hour. So it's not a problem. Uh, that number is, oh, there's a number I don't remember, but as long as your machine is on like 70% of the time or 80% of the time, you're making money. So if you're run out of light for a day, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like you're going to lose anything or whatever. You'll still be good. Of course, the better your performance, the more you can make. But really, like, stressing about 1 or 2 hours of off time every few days is not going to make a difference. Then you have slashing, which is the important one. The slashing is when the network detects a possible attack to the network, and it goes like, "Oh, this is not happening." What Ethereum does, the penalty is 1 ether of the balance and some leakage. So it takes 1 ether off, and then as long as you keep doing whatever you're doing that is wrong, it takes 0.2 ether every block until you get nothing and it kicks you out. It's a way to slowly, it gives you time to fix, but it needs to slowly kick you out because, well, you're not working. Uh, and there's generally one way to do this, and it's running the same wallet, the same validator wallet from two machines at a time. So it's almost impossible to do it unless you really are trying to do it. Like, I don't, in all Ethereum, in the 10 years of Ethereum, or specifically the 5 years of proof of stake, less than 100 validators have been slashed. So this doesn't happen just because. And the last one, the correlation penalties. This is that's probably the biggest event that could happen. It has never happened. The correlation penalties is just that when Ethereum sees that there's a lot of people getting slashed, it says, okay, this must be a group, so it increases the penalty so it can kick the group out. So if, I don't know, if let's say 1/3 of Ethereum is getting slashed, it's like, well, this 1/3 must be related. It is like, it doesn't happen just because. And because if we remember that we need 2/3 to keep going, Ethereum cannot move with 1/3. So it makes everything possible to kick that portion out as soon as it can to restore functionality. But again, this event has really never happened. It's part of the design, so it's good to know just in case. But it's just, it's, hopefully we'll never see it. I don't think we'll never see it. Okay, I'll stop here again before going to the last portion. Any questions? Any comments? This part was maybe a bit easier to understand. Yep. Okay. Well, let's continue then if there's no questions. Now we get to the part of Lido specifically. All of this has been talking about Ethereum. This is how that's how Ethereum works in general. But then you have a lot of applications and protocols like Lido that are like middleware. They sit in the middle and they help coordinate some things. In the case of Lido is more like this matchmaker. So Lido helps people with Ether that maybe don't, for reasons whatever, don't want to run a validator, uh, and then gets operators who need Ether to run the validators, and they match them together. Lido matches them together. On normal Ethereum, you need to get your own money. Lido says, okay, well, you have the money, you have the machines, let's just help you guys do business together. Let's say this is like very high level. There's multiple ways for Lido to do this, and one of them is the CSM. CSM stands for Community Staking Module. It's a is this module, this part of the protocol that is made for independent stakers, like we've been talking about, not for professionals. There's a professional model and whatever. In the case of the CSM, then how it works is anyone can enter. You can just set up your machine and whatever, and you need to put up a bond, a collateral, so you can be given the ether from those people wanting to get validated. And how it works is that you get. Let me just change the slide because this probably is not going to cut it. Okay, but in general, the bond can go as low as 1.3 ether, which, if we remember, a normal validator on Ethereum is 32 ether. Is considerably less ether, and the rewards are about 2 times the Ethereum vanilla rewards. So Ethereum was 3%, you can make about 6% using Lido CSM. Again, that's part of why we're here, trying to grow that part, this 6.5%, make it bigger, make the network stronger, more appealing to institutions and other people, and also make some money on the side. Now, some features of this module. Like I said, first of all, 1.3 Ether is the lowest part of the bond. Is also the lowest bond on the market right now. Other staking options are a bit more pricier. There's two sources of rewards to make these 2 times rewards. On one hand, the bond is staked. So if you put 1.3 ether, that 1.3 ether is also making rewards. It's making 3% more or less. So that's one part of the equation. The other part is that you put the bond, Lido gives you 32 ether from someone in the network, whatever. You get a commission from that as well. Lido charges everyone 10% of the reward, so 10% of the 3%, and it gives you, as an operator, it depends on a few things, but it's about 4, 5, 6% of the rewards. So it gives you about half of what Lido charges the customer, and that's the other part. So you get 3% on the bond, and then you get 6% of the 3% of the 32 ether. Then there's what we call this bulk discount. Really, to open your account, if you will, the first bond is a bit more expensive. Is 2.4 ether for most people, and then there's an option where you can get it to be 1.5 for the first one, and after the first one, all of them are 1.3. There's the MEV smoothing. If we remember back the concept of MEV, usually MEV is personal, so you get all the rewards, you get all the risk as well. In the case of Lido, smoothing means that you share MEV with everyone. So And just to picture this, there is MEV is a thing of luck because it depends on the block. So, some blocks make a lot of money. I've seen blocks making more than 100 ether for the validator, which is crazy, and some blocks make nothing. So usually, what people prefer is to join a smoothing pool. We call a smoothing pool. So everyone shares the MEV rewards. Maybe you don't get lucky, or maybe you get a 900 ether reward, but you instead share it, so it's more stable. The reward on the year is more stable because you always share everything, you always get something, even if it's not huge. And then the reward socialization. So if we remember here on the penalties, if you miss duties, you lose money. How Lido works is that as long as you are above a threshold, everyone makes the same money. So it doesn't matter if you go offline for one day, if you are above the threshold, you are just as fine. Um, Now there's version 2 that is just happening right now, so that's why I don't include it as part of the whole pitch. The version 2 is in testnet, but it's not yet on mainnet. So if you guys try this at home, you'll probably try the version 2. If you go to mainnet in a week or a few on this month, it's not going to be. It's going to be more akin to this. The version 2 is essentially the same, but there's a few other benefits. One of them is the priority queue. So when you try to become an operator for Lido, you have to join a queue and wait till there's enough deposits to fulfill your validators. Um, on the V2, we can give benefits to certain operators. So people that we know are running from home in our businesses, we tell them, okay, you are doing good, you get first on the line. And so the businesses have to wait because this module is not for businesses really. Then there's a strike system. So okay, the features sounded good, but you can still do bad. We remember that there's penalties and all of that. With the strike system, you get 3 opportunities, and then you get kicked out. So if you are going way under the threshold, if you are committing some kind of what can be considered attack or just not behaving properly, you are going to get a few strikes until Lido says, well, enough, bye. And then there's the identified community staking framework, which is this way we have to identify the people that are running from home, and then they get benefits. Part of the benefits are that, so like I mentioned on the bulk discount, that some people get 1.5% Ether for the first one. That's for the identified stakers. The priority queue, that's for the identified stakers. And also the identified stakers get more rewards for the validators. That's why I said it depends. If you are, as part of the rewards, if you enter normally, you get about 3% of what Lido charges to the stakers. If you are identified, it goes up to 6%. So the idea is just trying to encourage more individuals to just do it from home, to just join and all of that. And well, there's a few more things. I won't sit too long on these. This is sort of part of what we use to identify people to give them these benefits. One part is the proof of experience. So maybe you run on a testnet, maybe you run on mainnet. Like you just knowing that you know how to run a validator on Ethereum. There's multiple ways. There's the proof of engagement. So if you engage with Lido in any meaningful way, or with Ethereum in general, it doesn't have to be Lido exclusively, you also get points. So for instance, later today, I'll give like a 2 or 3 question survey, and at the end of the survey, there's a credential that you can use for this, for example, an on-chain credential that says, hey, I attended this, and then you can go claim some of the points. And then there's the proof of humanity, which is also required, just to know that you are a person, not a business, or not a bot, for example. And there's multiple ways to do it. You can verify using your Twitter, you can verify using Discord, or there's like some passports developed in crypto where they just work differently. So I won't spend too much time on that, but you can just do certain actions to guarantee that you're a human. Um, yeah. Okay. Any question up to here? No? We're good? Okay. So now to get on the operations part of this, and I'll also do a very quick demo. There's some requirements to be part to operate a node in Lido. One of them, like I said, the bond. Bond is the collateral. If something happens, if you do something bad, we can penalize you using the bond. Then it's also exiting validators if you're requested. If you do something bad or if whatever, and Lido says, okay, you have to get out, you have to get out. And then, and this is more procedural, more technical, the validators have a withdrawal address. That's the address, like if the validator is running for 1 week, 2 years, whatever, you set an address where it's going to receive the money when it finishes, when you exit. This address cannot be changed for security reasons. So if I don't know, if you're running a machine at home and someone hacks it or someone gets access, they can do a lot of things. They cannot take the money because the money is only going to go out to that address. In the case of Lido, if it was your money, you put whatever address you want. In the case of Lido, because Lido gives the money, Lido also needs to have it back when you exit, which is to give people their money back when they request it, like a bank or something. So you get the address of Lido. Then there's the fee recipient. The fee recipient is for MEV specifically, also an address provided by Lido, because remember, you join this MEV smoothing pool, so the rewards have to be shared. To share the rewards, you have to send them there. And then part of the infrastructure of MEV is this thing called MEV Boost, which is a piece of software, and you have to use it using also Lido-vetted relays. You connect to relays that provide you with the connection to MEV, and Lido vets some of the relays to make sure that they are safe to use and that they follow certain practices. A lot of this and all of this I'll share after. We've put a lot of effort into making sure that there's integrations to make it easy. So there's things that are more graphical for people that maybe are not as familiar. So they look more like any other interface, like that node, for example. And there's other ones that are probably more closer to professionals. You go into the terminal and you see you see everything, and then you would go for maybe Sedge or if Docker, stuff like that. And it's also composable with DBTs as other technology. Won't really touch on that today. And especially for Ethereum, that gas prices sometimes get a bit pricier. We've done our best to optimize the protocol so that every time you have to put a validator or claim your rewards, is the cheapest one when compared with other solutions. There's as well a lot of guides in multiple languages. I think we don't have Vietnamese specifically, but there's videos, written guides. There's a lot of things in English, Spanish. I think there's Japanese as well. There's a ton of things. If anyone wants to do something in Vietnamese, is also very much welcome. We can talk later. There's the Telegram. There's this part of the guide that, well, I don't see anyone following, so no need to open. I'll share the link later as well. But that's pretty much a link to our documentation. Again, very complete documentation to run this with tracks for beginners, for intermediate and advanced, and all of that. And lastly, okay, I'll just do I won't do, you know what? I won't do what I was really thinking of doing. I won't do the whole workshop because no one is following along. I'll just show my setup, for example, my personal setup. I think maybe it's better to start. So, for example, This is one node I have, and this is one of this is what we consider beginner. It's an interface, looks friendly, looks, it's not like coming here to the terminal. It's not as daunting as that. You don't need to know any commands. You just have to look, read, click, as easy as that. In the case of download, for example, which is also what I would recommend if you guys are going to start this weekend or something, and if you don't have a lot of experience, just try download. Don't overcomplicate. There's no need. This works just as fine. So here, for example, you have a dashboard. The dashboard tells you first the chains. So what you have in that node, you can run Ethereum, but you can also run nodes for Bitcoin, for Monero. Like you can sync any chain you want, pretty much. Here I have, for example, Nethermind and Nimbus. These are clients. Nethermind is an execution client. Nimbus is a consensus client. There's multiple clients written in multiple languages. This is like distributions of Linux. You have multiple distributions. In the core, is the same. It's just the way they work and sort of things are just different. Whatever, if you like this, you can learn later. You just choose whatever you want. They'll work just as fine. And here I also have these clients, Prism and Geth. Geth, for example, is execution, Prism is consensus, and they say Sepolia because it's a testnet. I'm running a testnet as well. So these are for Ethereum mainnet, these are for testnet. This node, for example, is running in my home in Dominican Republic in the Caribbean, so it's like very far. I'm just here just as fine connecting, no problem as well. Other part of the dashboard here, if I had any update available because there's a new release of a client or whatever, it would appear here and say, okay, Nethermind, there's a new version of Nethermind available. You want to update it? I'll click, I'll wait, update, all good. And here you have the stats of the machine. So you have the CPU usage, the temperature, memory, and the disk, and also the uptime. You can see if you, I don't know, up here, I'm traveling, for example, I can see if it went off for a few seconds or for something, and I just know as well. This is useful because you get to see, apart from the obvious like the disk and stuff like that, the CPU usage is very low, but the temperature is very high. It means that there's either something at my house not letting it ventilate properly, or I have to change the thermal paste, for example. So it's just stuff like that. It's just good to know. So the performance and all of that is good. Then you have Wi-Fi and VPN. Those are ways to connect to the machine remotely. So for example, I'm connected via a VPN. Then there's packages, and here like there's a few more packages I have installed. Again, Nimbus, Nethermind, MEB Boost, like I said, the package for Lido, just simple things. And there's a store, like an app store on your phone or whatever, where again, I can go and run a Bitcoin node if I want. Like this is not Ethereum exclusive either. Here, let me see what maybe is useful. But here, I don't know, you have also stickers tab where you can select if you want to run Ethereum. You come here, you pick the execution client of your liking, the consensus client of your liking, the web designer. I'm going to show that in a second. And MEB Boost. These are, for example, the relays. And here I picked relays that I like, but that also Lido allows to use, for example. And same, you have like different networks where you can do the same, yada, yada, yada. Lastly, probably, well, I'll show two more things, and I think then we can call it done. One thing is the web designer. The web designer is the package that sort of stores my validators. Remember that I said here, where is it? Here, that you get like the signer is that's that piece of software. So the signer connects to the validator client to the consensus and all of that. And for example, this signer, again, very cool, very graphic. You see here the public key of the validator, you see the free recipient, this is the free recipient of Lido, and you see the tag Lido because I'm running validators for Lido, for example. Here, I don't know, I could import the keys when I generate them and all of that. You just have to drag and drop the file. Um, just very easy and generally convenient. Then I think the last thing that we could check is CSM. And well, I need to disconnect here for a second to check something. Border 4. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I had to check something. Just disconnect very quickly. Um, So, for example, what we've seen till now is sort of your machine. That's in my home. That's running itself. Now, the part where you interact with Lido, where you upload the bond, where you upload the keys, where you sort of manage your relationship with Lido in general senses, is this dashboard, this website. Um, Here as well, you have a dashboard. You can see, and this one is red in purpose. I'll explain a bit why. The dashboard, you have some basic information. One of them is the keys. So you see if you just deposit a key and the key still doesn't have the ether, it would be depositable, for example. If the key has the ether but is waiting to be activated, it will be pending activation. If it's active, if it's running, it will be active. If it's exited, like you just exit and stuff, or is exiting, will be here. And if it's withdrawn, it means that it has completed the exit process. It's here because I have withdrawn one here. Lido also checks for errors. So if you try to submit information that is not correct or something, you would have issues with keys, and they would say, okay, well, I'm sorry, but I cannot accept this key. Please delete it and resubmit it. Then there's a section for bonds and rewards. This is testnet, for example. You can see my rewards, what I can claim. I can claim 1 ether, not bad. This is the balance. This is the bond that I need to operate, and the excess. Remember that the bond is staked. The bond makes 3%. So you have the required, and then you have the excess. This is because I've been running this one for long, and this is the part of the bond that has been acquired for some time, but I don't really need to have it there. I can move it to my wallet, sell it, or do whatever I want. And then there's the rewards distribution. Every 28 days, there's a calculation of the reward, your performance, and all of that, and say, okay, from all the money that Lido has made, this belongs to you. And here you will see what's the distribution. There's a new one coming in 6 days, things like that. And lastly, there's roles. You have a manager and a rewards address. This is for security. When you set up, and this is also probably an attractive feature versus doing Ethereum vanilla, like just put the 32 Ether like that. Because, for example, you can have the manager address as a hot wallet. The manager can come to the interface, can perform certain actions, can deposit, can just see notifications, etc. But the reward address is the only one that can receive money. So you can put a safer wallet, something called a cold wallet, something like that, as the rewards. So if every time you do something, you receive the money there. And the manager wallet as something that you just use normally, that I'm here in Vietnam, I can just check it, I can just do a few things, for example. And very importantly, the rewards address is the only one that can change both. So it's like the root manager, I guess you could say. And well, there may be a few more things, but I think this is enough for now. Any questions, comments? Again, this may feel like a lot right now, but I guess it's more for you guys to be exposed, and then later with the resources that we're going to share, you can at your own time do all of this. It should take For first timers, it usually takes 2 or 3 hours to get all of this done. Really, there's also links to a few things that we'll share already as well. Even some cloud credits that you can use to run a server, so you don't have to buy the machine right now. You can just do everything for free. You don't need to install everything. You try it out, and then if you like it, you just learn more, and eventually you can get to that point. You had a question? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good question. That's technically a civil attack. We would call. Um, it's not encouraged. It's probably going to happen, and this framework will probably change with time as we see people behaving just like that. That's probably going to happen. It's this part, like I said, is new. So until we get to mainnet, we don't know how people are going to do. But for example, we can see that if the money comes from the same wallet, it's likely that is something happening. There's also a cap to all of these. So for example, here this testnet account has the role, right, that you would get if you get identified. And for example, you get more rewards for only the first 16 keys. So if you're a business, if you put more than that, you did nothing really, because you get the same rewards that you would get otherwise. So it's more costly for you to get identified, to get all the points for that, for them not be able to squeeze all of it, which is complicated because we try to get the balance right, but yeah. Yeah, yeah. After this, I'll just share a post with a few links and a few stuff. Any other question, comment? Yeah, 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 yeah. Which is also why we have the group and all of that. So like we can just talk there as well. I'm aware that this takes some time, so but there's no rush, so it's all good. Okay, then we're done.